Do the thing, y'all. Do the thing, y'all. Do the thing. Do it. Do the thing, y'all. Do the thing, y'all. Yeah, yeah. Do the thing, y'all. Do the thing, y'all. Do the thing, y'all. Smash the like button. Smash that like button. The like button. Smash it. Smash it. The like button. Smash it. Smash it. Smash the like button. Smash the like button. Do the thing and smash the like button. Smash the like button. Smash the crazy like button. Do the thing and smash that like button. Are you gonna smash the like button? Are you gonna smash the like button? Are you gonna smash the like? News for the 99. Smash it now. Yeah, the like button. Do the thing now.
Smash.
Break it down now. Do the thing. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the internet.
What? Yeah, welcome to the Status Coup live stream. Today is Thursday. It's January 26th, 2023. I am back from Atlanta, Georgia. Ron Placone is joining me in studio. We've got lots to talk about, starting with a situation that's now developing in Memphis, Tennessee, where 5 police officers have not only been fired for beating a man at a traffic stop, but are facing charges for second-degree murder.
Yeah, I mean it's and here's the thing to note is that they haven't released the body cam footage yet. Which how bad do you think it's gonna be? I
It's
mean
going
they,
to be
they
bad.
haven't even released it yet and they're charging all of these officers already. I mean that's like it's gonna be really bad because they beat the man to death, right? I mean that's what
Yeah.
happened.
So yeah, he was stopped for what they're saying is reckless driving. I don't know if that's true or not. That's the claim that the police department was making at the time. This was January 8th. He died in the hospital January 10th, which was 3 days later from the beating. And then originally all 5 were fired, but we don't know, what. Obviously, they had an internal investigation. One of the things to note is that he was placed on dialysis before he passed away. So it must have been a pretty rough beating if he needed dialysis. And now they're being charged with
Yeah.
murder. So the police, so originally Ben Crump, who was the attorney for the family, originally they were going to release the body cam footage earlier this week. That didn't happen. The family has seen it, however, and so my understanding is that they will be releasing it to the public tomorrow afternoon. So we will be sending John Farina there to report live when that happens and to cover any protests that break out.
So should we go to the statements that
Yeah,
were released today?
yeah. Let's play the press conference.
We're here today because of a tragedy that wounds one family deeply, but also hurts us all, the death of Tyre Nichols. We understand and acknowledge the grief that the friends and family of Tyre Nichols are experiencing right now, as well as the great concern throughout all of Memphis and Shelby County about this case. We met several times this week with the family of Tyre Nichols. They described an almost perfect son, a cheerful and happy person who enjoyed skateboarding and sunsets over Shelby Farms Park. Earlier today, the grand jury returned indictments against 5 former Memphis Police Department officers regarding the death of Tyre Nichols. These are the same 5 officers who were previously or recently terminated by the Memphis Police Department. They are currently in custody. They are Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin III, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith. The grand jury returned indictments against all 5 with the same charges. And we had previously met with the family of Tyre Nichols to go over what these charges were going to be. And that meeting with the family, I think, went rather well. Here are the charges: second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping resulting in bodily injury, aggravated kidnapping involving the possession of a weapon, official misconduct through unauthorized exercise of power, official misconduct through failure to act when there is a duty imposed by law, and official oppression. While each of the 5 individuals played a different role in the incident in question, the actions of all of them resulted in the death of Tyre Nichols, and they are all responsible.
And you say the investigation's ongoing. Does that include other officers that were alluded to in C.J. Davis' address last night, and also could it also involve the other EMTs and personnel from the fire department?
Nothing we do today or did today precludes the addition of any further charges regarding any of the people that you mentioned. We're still actively reviewing everything.
So there's a lot to unpack here. But first of all, so Tina, let me ask you, because I just want to make sure I have this like straight in my head. First degree murder is when you
Premeditated.
premeditated and you're trying to kill somebody. Second degree is
Not
you didn't
premeditated.
yeah, it
Right.
wasn't necessarily premeditated, but is it you meant to murder or not? Because like third degree is like
Involuntary manslaughter.
is that third degree then?
I'm not sure. I think so.
Okay. Because I mean, you know,
I just know the difference would be premeditated as you went to plan the murder. Like it was planned in advance. You went there with the intent to actually kill someone. And here comes Colin.
Second degree is you did not premeditate it, but you still had the intent to kill once it was.
Okay. All right. That's what I wasn't clear on. Okay. Thank you for that, Colin. Okay. Well, then I think in this case, second degree is accurate. I
think it's accurate.
Yeah,
I know the family said that they were okay with it. I think they originally pushed for first-degree charges, but then said they were okay with the secondary charges because it came with a host of other charges, you know, that went along with that.
Right. What I couldn't remember in my head was I was like, well, does second degree mean? Because if it's like, okay, maybe they weren't intending to kill the person, but once they were in the action, if you beat
they didn't stop themselves.
Yeah. They didn't stop themselves. And if you beat the pulp out of a person to the point where they need dialysis, I think it's a tough. I mean, you couldn't be like, we were trying to kill the guy. Oh, you weren't?
No, you were.
Yeah,
exactly. I think it's fair.
So,
I think it also is important to point out that the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, their spokesperson, David Roush, made this statement that he saw the video footage and called it absolutely appalling. And then he said, let me be clear, what happened here does not reflect proper policing. So the fact that you've got substantial amount of police saying that it was bad and wrong means it's pretty bad. There's no thin blue line here I'm seeing. But, I got to ask the uncomfortable question too. Like, would they be going this hard at these officers if they were white?
Probably not. I mean, yeah, they probably weren't. And yeah, that is an uncomfortable question. But, you can't help but notice that. Like, okay, it was.
I still think racism can play a role in these, in these areas, and we do know that black cops are often the subject of racism put towards them by their white officers that they're in the force with. So I think it's worth mentioning.
To be clear, it is worth mentioning. But to be clear, two things can be true at the same time. One, it's terrible what these officers did.
Oh, it's inexcusable. I'm not excusing it.
Justice. And two, but if you notice all the trends in our society and what has happened in the past, there is a double standard here, and
there's a double standard because the white cops that have done similar things seem to not be tried for murder. So I think
and Ralph G brings that up. Why don't we bring up that chat right now, Colin?
Yeah, okay.
Ralph G brings that up too. Like it's like, yeah, white cops have done similar things. So the standard here, why aren't those other cops in jail right now? When you see black versus white cop, the white cops usually get off scotch-free. I mean, the guy who choked out Eric Garner, I don't think anything ever happened to that guy.
No,
he
see my
just
point?
Choked him out in broad daylight and like physically just killed him. And it's like, so yeah, I mean, you can still notice that double standard big time because it's there.
It's there, and I'm not suggesting that these officers shouldn't be tried for murder, and they should be. I'm just suggesting that these other officers that are white that have not been tried should also be tried and held accountable for what they do.
Yeah, I mean, well, and this is why it's a systemic disease, because it's like every now and again, something is just so egregious that they know they need to act. They're like, okay, we can't just brush this one under the rug. There is too much. But they know that these things are so commonplace that the average amount of outrage time is about 48 hours. When it's a cop killing or a mass shooting, for about 48 hours, the public is pissed off. Then we kind of forget until the next one. And in the meantime, there's just a bunch of grandstanding and nothing really happens. So is it awesome when, justice is occasionally served? Of course. But, the systemic disease is still there. The systemic disease is just still there. And it's just so brutally apparent.
I don't disagree. And I think an unintended consequence of that is that the police are now starting to feel is that nobody trusts their press releases anymore. Nobody trusts their side of the story anymore. I don't think they thought through that eventually they would lose public trust to this level, right? You've got grandmas that are 70 years old out there, grandmas that are like, I no longer trust what the police are saying. When you've lost the grandma contingent, you're in trouble. So, and there's good reason for that, right? It's too many reports that are accurate that turn out to be true, where they've lied about what's happened during the arrest, where they have planted guns on people they shot. This all sounds like Hollywood movie plots, right? But they're all documented true things that have happened, and they've happened more than once. So we didn't get here overnight. And something needs to change, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, time and time again, and I mean, you can go through like shooting after shooting. I mean, at the Anthony McLean thing here,
Ugh,
or no,
right.
wait, I think Anthony
The new one,
McLean was
Keenan
Colorado, right?
Anderson.
No, the one in Pasadena.
Oh, well, which one in
There's
Pasadena? But there's been
I
several.
know it's God, it's so disgusting. Like there's so many. It's
There's
like,
so many.
but the one that happened in Pasadena where they tried to make it out like the guy had a gun.
Right.
It was just so the way they edited it, like he was grabbing at his belt buckle. They were like, "That's a gun that he was reaching for," and it was like so selectively edited that I mean,
Right.
you know, you're talking about Hollywood. This is something that would have failed a 7th grade film class because the editing was
100%.
so
Yeah.
deceptive and
My other thing that they do is that blows my mind. I've seen multiple times is where they say a cigarette lighter was a gun. Well, we thought it was a gun.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was
The problem is they shoot first and then they ask questions later. That's not how this is supposed to go. Ask questions and then make a decision based on. They're also trigger happy, right? That their initial gut response is just like, you know.
Well, of course, and
They're treating people in the streets like they're enemy combatants when they're citizens that they're supposed to by you know their own motto, serve and protect.
right, which you know, I mean, we all know that is comically absurd. I mean, they serve and protect the powerful in the status quo, but that's what they're serving and protecting. That's why there's the systemic problem. You look at the entire way this is set up. It's not set up to in any way benefit civilians. It's set up to just, you know, keep the powerful within their power and to basically just beat everyone in line, more or less. And you look at, you know, around the country, you look at what's happening in Cop City, which we're going to get to later. And we have a lot of firsthand footage from Miss Tina-Desiree Berg. And, you know, you look at what's going on in Memphis, what we're talking about now. Simultaneously, while all of this was going on here in Los Angeles, we had a vigilante take it upon himself to beat the shit out of homeless people for no reason. He was just a sick bully. And he live streamed.
And
which is
crazy.
Was proud
I saw
of
that
this.
yesterday.
He was proud of this, and simultaneously, in a high dose of very cruel irony, while that's going on, instead of saying, "Hey, we need to capture this self-appointed vigilante who's brutalizing homeless people for no reason," what did LA City? What were they active doing instead? They were approving police robot dogs. The Public Safety Committee just approved a bunch of lethal police robot dogs to be tried here in Los Angeles. Now, that has been tried in New York City. It has been tried in San Francisco. It has failed miserably every time it's been tried because it's a dystopian hellscape idea. But Los Angeles decided, oh, we need some of that here. So it's just a lesson in what's really going on right now and what the police really are and what our society really is. You know, since my entire adult life, you know, because I started paying attention to the world, you know, politically and stuff in the Iraq War. So pretty much my entire adult life, you hear, you know, especially people on the left say, is this who we are? Is this who we are? And I think that to really move forward, you have to have a certain level of acceptance. Now, when I say this, I'm not suggesting giving up. I'm not like blackpilling. I'm not.
No, but it does. Like that. It is an uncomfortable thing to have to accept.
It's an uncomfortable thing.
But then you get to a point where you're just like, how can I not? I've seen too much of this.
Well, and it's a matter of knowing thine enemy. And I think you have to reach a level of acceptance where you're just saying, this is what we are. This is what the United States is. It is an authoritarian, dystopian hellscape. The police are not there to serve and protect. The entire system needs to be just gutted and started over again. And that's the only way we're going to move forward. And that's one of many, many things, because we are just all the empires you see in the movies. We're one of them. That's what we are.
We are one of them, and none of them made it past 300 years.
250 is about. That's about like the number, and we're approaching that now.
We're approaching that.
So it's like, you know, and again, I'm not suggesting giving up or anything like that. I'm just saying, like,
we have to do something about the excesses that we have happening that are becoming super normalized, right? I mean, we didn't get here overnight. We kind of slightly, you know, a little bit here, and then now we find. Yeah, it's like the frog in the water. You're right. That's exactly what it is. You don't feel it while you're in the water because they kind of turn it up. But now we're feeling it, right? Because it's like, holy shit, how did we get here?
It's here. And
it's
I mean,
here.
I think it's like you need to have a certain level of acceptance that yes, this is what this country is. It's not a democracy. It's a straight up oligarchy. It benefits the needs of an elite few, and they have all the rules for them
bought the
because
Congress,
they
yeah.
bought the Congress, they bought the judges, they our economy's based on Wall Street, which is just imaginary freaking gambling. They have about a quadrillion in assets. You think that actually translate? It freaking doesn't. It's a joke. And so, this is just the society we are. And, it's going to be a long road to start breaking that up. But I think until we come face to face with what it really is,
on that note,
things aren't really going to change.
I was going to say, on that note, let's play the police chief's response to this, because I thought it was kind of interesting.
I actually don't think I have that.
You're not the police chief. What is this? You're Colin.
It was the
Been funny if
KWQC.
Chief Colin.
It's in the link on the KWQC that Zaina sent this morning. I thought.
Oh, is it this? Give me.
I think you probably do have it. You just don't realize it's the police chief.
This is not just a professional failing. This is a failing of basic humanity toward another individual. This incident was heinous, reckless, and inhumane. I expect you to feel what the Nichols family feels. I expect you to feel outrage in the disregard of basic human rights, as our police officers have taken an oath to do the opposite of what transpired on the video.
Ron, what's your reaction to that?
I mean, how many have done the opposite of their oath all the time? I mean, yeah, absolutely. And again, I hope these cops get thrown in jail for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, what I think is happening now, maybe I'm wrong. I'm very interested in your thoughts on this. I think the thin blue line is disappearing. I think some of these acts have become so egregious and just so indefensible.
So describe what you mean by that, though. What do you mean?
So I think 10 years ago they would have covered this up, and you would not hear the police chief making such a statement that what these cops did was wrong, inhumane. This is not what we're supposed to do. This is not what our oath is. Like, you would not have heard that 10 years ago.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
Do you think it's just, do you think it's just optics? Do you think do you think the thin blue line, the quote unquote thin blue line, is starting to disappear, where they're like, no, we understand if we remain silent and protect the cops that are murdering people in this way, we're endangering ourselves. We now have a reactionary public that doesn't trust us. They don't believe us when we say this, that, or the other. I mean, you now have people that don't even want to call 911 if they're in trouble because they don't trust the police. So
I think on the on the small scale, like, yeah, there's certainly some legitimacy to what you're saying, because one of the things that we're all coming to terms with, it's not like Rodney King happened and then all of a sudden something else happened years later. Things have always been happening.
They've never stopped happening. Yeah.
It's just we didn't have stuff like this. We didn't have these things for a lot of years. Now we do, and you can capture what's going on right on your phone. So yes, I do think that is changing the conversation. I do think that is forcing some accountability on a systemic level. I don't share your optimism there. I think
I'm not sure I have optimism.
No. I know what you mean. I guess yeah, maybe that was a wrong way to put it. But like on a systemic level, I think the problem is still there and it's still the same. So it's yeah, on the micro level, like you're seeing some for instances, and okay, that's a good thing. You're still seeing tons of for instances that go the other way, where they just assemble their propaganda and they get these cops off scotch-free. So you're still seeing way too many times where it goes the other way. And also, no one is really confronting the system as a whole. No one is really saying, okay, we need to rethink about what this system really is. Because when you think about it,
everything's just reactionary at this point. I don't disagree with you. It's just
reactionary. Because when you think about it, again, and I know I've said this on the show before, but it's like, if you just describe the job of a cop to a random person who maybe came from a different planet or something and has no idea, and you just describe what they'd say that's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. Why would you do it that way? It's like the complete opposite of the idea of having law and order in a society, where you're just supposed to have this one person who is armed to the T, who has a license to kill. They're undertrained, underscreened, and they're also expected to respond to any given situation at any given time. It's a complete
Is
absurd
crazy.
idea.
I agree.
Unless your goal isn't to serve and protect, and your goal is to just uphold and brutalize. If your goal is to uphold and brutalize, that system's going to work great. If it's to serve and protect, that is the most ridiculous idea I have ever heard. I honestly think a 5-year-old could do better.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I mean, it should be where you call 911, you figure out what the call's about, and then you have trained individuals to deal with various scenarios, right? Yeah, what we're doing right now is not working.
Yeah,
I don't disagree.
Yeah, but it's like it's hard because like everything I'm saying is an abolitionist stance. Like I am an abolitionist.
Right. So I mean, let's talk about that for a second. I've interviewed a lot of abolitionists, and I ask every single one of them, "Do you think there should be no policing at all? Like nothing like that should exist?" No, none of them say yes to that question.
Right.
They want something there. They want people to investigate serial killers, rapists, like actual crimes, right? And what they don't want is what we have now, because it isn't working. Now you have officers responding to mental health crisis issues where they're not trained to do it, so they end up killing people when that should not be happening. You have, as you said, underscreened individuals. I mean, who's giving a gun and a badge to a 19-year-old that has absolutely no idea of what he's doing? He's too young, in my opinion, but also isn't, I mean, what are his viewpoints? If he's a neo-Nazi, he's obviously going to bring that bias into the force with him. If he's, whatever, go down the list. It just doesn't make sense. In the very least, there should be some sort of education, qualification. There should be passing certain tests, qualifications, screening of some sort. It just makes sense that you would do that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, there are certain things that can prohibit you from getting any given job. And if you,
Right.
I know that you're not going to disagree with this in any way, but if you are a white supremacist or a neo-Nazi, that should be a disqualifier to being
100%.
a cop. That would
agree.
clearly compromise your ability to be what a cop is supposed to
I agree.
be. So that should be a disqualifier. So when they
I
screen
agree.
people, they should find that stuff and they should be like, hey, sorry,
Not
you
gonna
can't
happen.
join the police force. Instead, they have white supremacist gangs within the police force.
100%.
It's been
We know
documented.
this as a fact. It's not up for debate. I think the other problem that doesn't really get discussed is oftentimes they recruit from the military, because military folks are, quote unquote trained. But what they're trained to do is fight enemies and deal with enemy combatants, not civilians in the street. That's the first problem. The second problem, they might have deep PTSD that they're not getting treatment for, because God forbid our government provides our veterans with any decent kind of medical care when they get back from serving the country. So this is probably not the best pool to be picking from for those reasons as well. You're now putting, these guys in positions where they might not be able to deal with a mental health crisis issue from somebody else.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate what you said too. Like a lot of abolitionists, and myself being among them, we're not calling for no law and order in a society.
Right? I
wish
think
we could
people
live
hear
in
that and they're
world.
like,
well, of course.
Right?
I mean,
They're
I
like-
wish we could live in that world, but I know that that's not reality. What
Right.
we're calling for is a better structure than what we have now.
one that makes sense.
One that makes sense. I mean, it's
One that's more equitable.
well, when people are like, well, I mean, what do you expect? How can you expect a better system? I'm like, well, do you think
Why
we could
can't
come up
we
with a
expect
worse
it?
one?
Yeah.
How can we come up with a worse one? We wouldn't be able to come up with a worse one if we freaking tried. Well, I guess technically we could. I mean, but short of
Yeah, don't
just
wish
people,
that.
yeah, right.
We're gonna end up with Pinochet's army in here any day now.
Well, yeah, no. Well, hey, we're getting robot dogs soon in LA, so I guess it could get worse. Fair, but we could certainly do better than this. I mean, there's no way that we can't do better
Right.
than this, and it's. I mean, I wrote a piece on what I would do. Like this is what I would do if I was just the benevolent emperor of the world, and or the United States at least. This is how I would conduct the idea of police. I would have specialized departments. There would be a protocol as far as penalties for what you do, like speeding or whatever else, and there would be specialized departments, and anything where force might be necessary. The only people responding to such a thing are people who are high highly trained to deal
like
with that
FBI
specific
level
situation.
training of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
agree with you.
why would the same person who goes to an active shooter also be
the same
pulling
guy that's
people
responding to
over
mental health? Yeah, or
mental
giving
health
tickets. Yeah,
or
it makes
speeding?
zero
Like
sense.
it makes no sense whatsoever.
And then the
But,
worst
you
part
know.
is that they're not even trained to deal with active shooter situations well, in my opinion. Look at how some of the responses have been to that. Uvalde being the prime one. I mean,
Where they hid, where they didn't.
Yeah, where they
the
hid.
parents
Right.
went in and they didn't. Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
so
They're they're
I mean,
really good at though. They can really handle those unarmed shooters real well, or excuse me, those unarmed people really well. But an armed one, ooh, different story.
yeah, no, it's
Different story.
Anyway.
Yeah,
We need to obviously. I think what we're getting at is we need to reimagine what
but
law
that term's been
enforcement looks
hijacked.
like.
People.
All right, what's a
hijack
better term?
Well, I think reimagined is a great term. I'm just bummed out they
Oh.
stole it.
Who stole it? I don't even know.
You hear that a lot now.
Do
When they
you?
say
Okay.
reimagine, they just mean like, we're going to have a thing where you can have coffee with the local police and find out they're
Okay,
nice.
that is not what I mean.
I know it's not. I mean, in the literal sense, it's actually a great way to look at it, but they've totally
Because I think you have to
hijacked
look
that.
at it and think of things in different terms than what we think of them now, right? I think rebuilding something that replaces what we see as police now requires looking at it from a different lens is what I'm trying to get
Rebuild
at.
and replace. Maybe that's
Rebuild and
maybe that's
replace.
rebuild and replace. That's
Yeah.
what we need to do with policing. Rebuild and replace. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that because it's like, yeah, when you say abolish, it kind of scares some people until you
because
like really
they don't understand what that means.
they don't understand what it means. Then when
Yeah.
you explain what it means, a lot of
They're
people
like,
are like,
"Oh,
oh,
okay,
that
I
totally
get
makes
it."
sense.
Right.
But so yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I just think, what do you think is going to happen when this footage drops?
I think there's going to be protests. We're sending John Farina to Memphis. He'll be there tomorrow. He's going to cover both the press conference and then I'm sure there'll be a protest after. I'm sure.
I think people are going to be very, very angry.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be, I mean, there's no doubt it's going to be bad. It's
Yeah.
going to be
Do you think it's going to
bad.
be worse than Atlanta? I think maybe.
I think maybe, yeah. I mean, think about what happened here in LA, how brutal that was. You watched them literally tase a man to death. That was released right away. And there's no way that Memphis is any more or less corrupt than LA. I think it's fair to say
No way.
They're probably
Probably
equal.
worse.
You think
I'd say they
Memphis
might
is
be worse.
Or LA is worse?
I do, only because I think Memphis is worse. Only because in recent years we've had layers of forcing transparency that they obviously don't want. But I'm not saying that's corrected most things. It has not. But I'm saying there is at least that.
Maybe. I mean, but I don't.
Smidge.
Even if that's true, I don't think the differential is that much. That, like, I'm just saying.
Oh
the
yeah, I don't think
footage
the
that
outcome
was
differential is
released-
enough to change the course of things. But I do think. I mean, like you said, we had the Keenan Anderson body cam pretty quickly.
Yeah, but so I don't think Memphis is like that far off. So if they're not releasing stuff and they're waiting
bad.
and they're like they're
And now they're
giving-
making speeches warning. You know, I mean, I think part of what the police chief was saying is please don't
they're
destroy
tailing
the
off
town.
charges.
Yeah.
Like they're tailing off the charges, and they're also like saying that they've consulted the family already, saying the family signed off on this. So yeah, this footage is going to be freaking brutal. They are
It's gotta be.
preparing themselves.
Yeah.
They are preparing themselves. So it's going to be hard to watch, and we're not going to know until tomorrow. But yeah, I think it's going to be very freaking difficult to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So, should we switch gears here and do a
Yeah.
quick surveillance story and then go over to Cop City?
Also, I think my camera.
I was about to say, you're out of focus, Tina.
Damn autofocus again. Hang on. I'm going to get really big in your face, folks.
About
And to-
abolishing police, you become a ghost.
Well, she's done that. Yeah, as a reminder that we're sending
Whoa,
John
I made it
out.
worse.
We're sending John out to Memphis. So, like the video said, they're going to be releasing the body cam footage tomorrow night. So if there's any protests,
Yeah,
I
we're
think
gonna
that's
be on
better.
the ground,
Yeah, that's better
folks.
again.
yeah,
We're gonna be
we'll
on the
most
ground.
likely live.
Yeah, you're
My
better. We're gonna be on the ground in Memphis, Well, John's going to be on the ground in Memphis, and
Somebody
again,
needs to clip this out for bloopers later.
if you go to
It's a giant
statuscoup.com/join, you can help all of that along. We rely on our members to fund journalism, to fund letting Tina go to Atlanta to cover Cop City, letting John go to Memphis to cover what will likely be some protests once this footage is released, to send Status Lou down to the border. All kinds of cool stuff that we do here, and we bring you stories that the corporate media is either grossly misrepresenting in their multi-million-dollar studios or just ignoring altogether. So that's what you're supporting when you support Status Coup. So, all right, let's go to this surveillance thing real quick. So,
this is in New York.
This is in New York. So now this is fresh off the hills. Just a quick backstory here. We covered this on Status Coup. They are using facial recognition technology in concerts now. And recently they kicked a woman out of a Madison Square Garden concert. She was attending a Christmas show with her daughter. The reason she was kicked out is because her face sent off a red flag, and she is part of a law firm that's involved in a lawsuit that involves Madison Square Garden. Now, she herself wasn't even...
Are you kidding me?
No, this happened in December.
Holy
We talked about it
crap.
on Status Coup. I did a short video on it.
Okay.
She wasn't even part of the lawsuit herself, by the way. She just worked for the law firm. So she had nothing to do with anything. She just worked for a law firm that was part of a lawsuit involving Madison Square Garden. So they kicked her out of the concert with her and her daughter. So that happened in December. So fresh off the heels of that going on, here's what NYPD was doing outside of a Drake concert. Can we play that video, Colin? It's from... So this
I
cop
saw that on
was
the Twitter.
filming. Yeah, this went
Yeah.
viral. This cop was filming everybody as they were leaving a Drake concert. Now, keep in mind, cops keep databases of facial recognition. Usually, this software is pretty faulty. It has mismatches all the time. It's never
100% does. It does have mismatches.
Yeah.
People need to be aware of that. They should not be relying on this for.
And usually they use it for shady things. I mean, usually they're using it to try to find information on undesirables like protesters and things like that. Sometimes they use it to solicit nude pictures. Sometimes they use it to solicit information about an ex partner. So it's not a good thing. And they were filming everyone as they walked out of a Drake concert. Now, this is funny. So later in Rolling Stone, the cop gave their side of the story. And here's what they had to say. We're not going to take a deep dive into this, but basically what they had to say, show the headline real quick, Colin. It was just for social media. They were just trying to get some likes, you know. The NYPD, they're enjoying a drink.
I was about to do the
show.
okay sign to the okay buddy sign, and then I was like, no, I can't do that.
That was their explanation, which, you know what?
So wrong.
Guess what? If the police have enough money that they can just have somebody trying to capture some cool things for the socials, they have too much money. So we better defund.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I think they were probably
was their
filming it to run it
explanation.
through. Yeah, to have it. They want to know everybody that was at the
Yeah,
at the
that was their
Drake
explanation.
concert.
So that's what happened. It went viral. They had to respond to it. So they're like, "Oh, we were just trying to get some stuff for our social media. Here is a quick call to action for you." Colin, can you show that Fight for the Future campaign I sent you? There is a call to action that addresses this directly. Venues are using facial recognition to reject fans they don't like. You know, like if you're a mom with her daughter and you're attending a Christmas show and you happen to work for a law firm.
Also, don't you sort of think that they're sort of targeting the concert because it was Drake?
Oh, totally. Of course. No. I believe them. It was just for the socials. So you can go to fightforthefuture.org.
Okay,
We'll
bro.
drop that petition in the chat. That's just a quick, crazy surveillance story for you. But this is happening. And look, we'll drop that link in the chat. This is particular to concert venues.
Yeah.
Now, you might be thinking, gee, Ron, this is really disturbing and this is bad and we need to put a stop to this. But, you know, concert attendance, it's not necessarily a make it or break it thing. Well, here's the thing, though.
But that is a
What's gonna
massive
happen-
invasion of your privacy. I mean,
Well, not only that, but what's going to happen when they start using it at a hospital or at a school, or so it's
Right.
like this stuff has very, very disturbing implications,
I agree.
especially when you're looking at through the lens of an
Too many
authoritarian.
innocent people can be trawled up into their, web
Yeah, no kidding.
based on personal bullshit, personal beefs maybe. Or, in the case of the hospital, what if somebody decides they want to target anybody that has gotten, a test for monkeypox or something? I mean, yeah, there's very nefarious possible implications for that.
All kinds of stuff. And you also have to look at it through the lens of we're an authoritarian oligarchy. You have to like look at it through that lens where it's like, okay, what are they going to use this stuff for? Obviously nothing good.
Nothing good.
So, it's going to start at something like a concert, and where's it going to end if we don't put a stop to it now? So we're going to drop that petition in the chat for your elected officials to take action to this, the Fight for the Future link. Please do sign that petition. And shall we go to Cop City, the opposite of Paradise City, Derek? I feel like it is the anti-Paradise City.
It is the anti-paradise. There's so many music songs with cities in them. The one that I had playing in my head, do you remember the one that was like, ain't gonna play Sun City, about apartheid down in South Africa? Like, I'm taking you way back. It was like 90s.
Oh, I feel like if I heard it, I would recognize it, but it's not like ringing a bell on.
I can't remember. Yeah, I don't remember who the artist was. It was one of those sort of anti-apartheid groups that was, I think it was like a conglomeration of folks. If anyone in the chat remembers, let me know.
Well, there was, I think it was like Little Steven actually was really outspoken. He was one of the like musicians who was like really outspoken on that first when it wasn't as popular to do so.
Right. Well, there was this area called Sun City in South Africa, in apartheid South Africa. So all these bands would go and play. That was where you would go to see these concerts. And so the whole point of this song was like part of the, boycott until they got rid of apartheid. It was like, so it was like, ain't gonna play Sun City, was meaning like, nah, until you guys get rid of apartheid, none of us are coming back to play your venue.
Yeah. No, I remember. It's funny. I'm not. The song's not ringing a bell, but I do like remember.
Sing it a little more. I am Gen X. I am totally Gen X. It's a Gen X song. Wait, I could always just look it up.
But I remember when that happened. Like I remember when like musicians started speaking out against that and stuff.
I mean, I'm looking it up now.
Yeah, look up the song. This is pertinent to Cop City.
Oh, Steven Van Zandt?
So it was Steven Van Zandt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
okay,
who
so
he kind of
1985.
started. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. He was one of the artists that really, I'm a big Steven Van Zandt fan, actually. I like that guy a lot. I love his Sirius XM channel is incredible. It's like the last breath of what like true rock and roll radio is supposed to be, in my opinion, or one of the last breaths at least. And it's like you can tell it's just like a labor of love for him, and he puts out a ton of good albums. Like his label is pretty stacked with some really great artists, and yeah, he's just a good dude. I mean, he helps out like music projects in schools and stuff, and he's always been outspoken against wars and apartheid, and like he's a pretty good dude. Like he's a pretty good dude.
Yeah. All right.
And
so
it's pretty
that's
admirable.
the song I had in my head the entire weekend, except that I was thinking Cop City.
Yeah.
Just
but anyway, all right. So moving on to Cop City.
So lots to talk about here. Also, folks in the chat, if you have questions about any of the reporting we've been doing the last few days, now's the time to ask them. I am here. We'll take the time to answer some of those. So Colin can keep his eye on that. I do want to give a little background on this because I do think there's so many moving parts and it can be quite confusing as to what's going on here. So at base, these are protests that have been going on for over a year. There are two properties involved in the protest. So there's 300 acres of forest land that is now protected, part of the public trust. To give background on that, this land was actually given to the city by the Arthur Blank Foundation, Family Foundation. He gave it to the public trust, and part of that grant was that it would stay in the public, be accessible to the public, and remain permanently a park. So that's where all of the anger is boiling over with the Ryan Millsap situation. And then adjacent to that is the area where the city wants to build the Cop City training center. So this is about 85, probably more acres that would include a Black Hawk helicopter pad, a mock city in which they can run various training mechanisms for stopping protests, so to speak. A lot of folks have referred to this as urban warfare in a weird way. I kind of think it makes sense. 12 gun ranges and a whole host of everything. Like, it's just to give you an idea, it's twice the size of what the LAPD training center is. So
It's like an amusement park for psychos.
well, here's the thing.
Are you a murderous psycho? We have a fun place for you to go.
Right. So it was originally sold, like part of what they said, and I think they thought that this would help sell the deal, but it's kind of turned a lot of people off. One of the things that was claimed is that this will be a playground for police officers because they need help with their morale currently after the uprisings in the face of George Floyd. Yeah, I don't know how they thought that would turn out well. So, so the concern is that it's not just going to be these 85 acres and, the 20 acres that Ryan Millsap is developing for a Hollywood studio. It's that it might bleed into all 300 acres at some point. So they feel really strongly about protecting all of this. So you have a mix of environmentalists that are there, social justice folks, people that are concerned about environmental racism, things that are concerned about over-policing. So there's a lot of different...
because like our guest pointed out, this has the very likely potential to poison the water wells too.
Oh, it 100% will.
So there's like so many environmental red flags.
So many red flags.
So very apparent.
Part of it, I feel like I should mention in that note, part of it is that this particular forest acts like a giant sponge for when it rains, and they get a lot of rain in the Atlanta area. And they've already had flooding problems in the South, right? Because there's just not, even with that forest, it's not enough to mop up the excess water. So the concern is that if once that forest has been eliminated, the sponge is gone, the flooding is going to get much worse. Now, the flooding is going to get much worse all on its own just because of climate change. But taking away the sponge of this forest is just going to amplify that even more. And of course, all of the neighborhoods that are going to be affected by this are poor Black and brown neighborhoods, not the wealthy white ones that are in the north, like Buckhead County. So that's part of what's driving this as well. So I interviewed one of the forest defenders. I want to talk about this for a second. This individual is now facing domestic terrorism charges for what I can only see as utilizing First Amendment rights. I don't even know where to start with this. It's just such an affront to so many things that I think are American. Even if you don't think, doing some sort of physical protest, meaning I'm standing in a tree or whatnot, constitutes First Amendment, I do think that the idea of civil arrest is ingrained in the American system, right? I mean, even if you go back to the Boston Tea Party where they were taking bales of tea and dumping them in the bay, what was that? That was property damage, right? That was probably the initial idea of like, well, if we engage in some sort of civil unrest to get their attention, we might go somewhere with this, right? So I don't think necessarily that should be criminalized. I think we need to point out that this particular law is a state law. It's not a federal law. So this was passed in 2017. The point of the law was to have something on the books to deal with hate crime. It came on the heels of the North Carolina church shooting. That's what they used as an excuse. But even at that time, the ACLU and other First Amendment institutions were concerned about how broadly the language was. They saw at that time that it could be used to just chill First Amendment free speech. That could be used to chill any sort of political dissent against the government. When in reality, political dissent against the government is, again, deeply American, right? Having the ability to check the government when you think the government wrong, that is something that should be protected. That's sort of what, theoretically this country is based on. So very disturbing law. They're using it. Go ahead.
This is a very common thing. When you take laws like the one you mentioned, and maybe they had an original intention to combat a certain thing, like a hate group or whatever, but then because it is so broadly worded, it ends up being weaponized against any dissent whatsoever. That's what happened with the Espionage Act. That act was intended
exactly.
to combat,
it's exactly the same, I think. It is exactly
the FARA, the Espionage Act. I mean, these things go back to, Espionage Act goes back to World War I. It was, supposed to be against, like enemy combatants within the context of a world war. And then it was later resurged because of Nazis. Like it was supposed to, be used against like Nazi spies and stuff. But, because it was written within that context and just never got changed or altered and just sort of sat there. Well, now it's just used to prosecute anyone who speaks out.
It hasn't been used to
whistleblowers,
prosecute
whatever.
any people that have committed hate crimes. Let me make that clear
Exactly.
as
So
well. This is
it's
the
like-
absolute first time they've used it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
So,
I mean, that's.
I think the
pretty
domestic
common thing,
terrorism
unfortunately.
charges are over the top. The individual that I spoke with was there the morning that Torta was killed, heard the shots, described to me as a flurry of gunfire, was not close enough in the vicinity to see any of that go down, but obviously it was very scary to hear that. Ran and hid in the forest. They were using dogs to hunt down the remaining protesters that were in the forest that morning. Was arrested, was kept in holding for 12 hours before knowing what was going to happen. Then eventually was booked, has an attorney. So I do want to play some of these clips from this.
Did you see any of the officers with body cameras on their bodies?
The situation was too traumatic and hectic for me to really even be aware. I don't even remember the names of the men who arrested me. Not that they told me their names, but I've been told that there is photography or video footage of the police near the location where my friend was shot, near and soon after, with body cams on their person.
So the reason, obviously, I'm asking they about this is because the police were initially claiming there was no body cam footage of the event or of anything, right? They said there was no body cam footage at all. Now they're saying there is body cam footage of the aftermath, which I find to be kind of strange.
Is it though? Because I mean, I feel like putting it on after the fact would be something.
Oh, yeah, 100%. What I'm saying is strange is that they wouldn't have body cam footage for the entire thing if that was their intention. So, yes,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is possible they shut them off to do some stuff, turned them back on, knowing after the fact it would be a problem. It's possible that it does exist, but they're burying it. It's possible. I mean, there's a whole host of things that are possible here. I'm not sure what the truth is. Let's play the next clip.
What point did they tell you they were going to charge you with domestic terrorism? I want to talk about this for a minute, and I also feel like we need to explain to the audience that this is not a federal charge. This is a state charge. In 2017, Georgia passed a very broad language bill that in the wake of the North Carolina Charleston church shooting, it was supposed to be used against hate crimes, but it's very broadly worded, so they're now using it against you guys. It feels to me as if they're trying to criminalize First Amendment rights. It's that broad. At what point did they let you know that's what they were going to use to charge you, and how do you feel about that?
They did not tell me what I was being charged with when they were apprehending me, when they were handcuffing me, when they were dragging me out of the forest, when they were putting me in the police van. At no moment did they tell me why I was being arrested. When I was being interviewed, interrogated by GBI and FBI, there was even an ICE agent there. They did not tell me why I was being arrested. When I asked for a call with the lawyer, they laughed in my face. They finally read me my Miranda rights in that interrogation, and it wasn't until I was in the jail, having already waited for hours to be processed. They were processing me and getting my fingerprints, and they muttered to each other, domestic terrorism. So that was all I knew about my charges at that time. And it wasn't until I spoke with my lawyer that I actually knew what my charges were.
How did you finally get in contact with your lawyer? Obviously, eventually they had to give you your right to do that, but was there a period of time?
So they were out. It was pretty much a complete 24 hours in the holding cell. At least one night, it was probably, I don't remember exactly, but well over 12 hours in a holding cell with no phone call. And once we were finally released into a pod with other inmates who were waiting on bail, we were supposed to be given an ID number that would let us call. My ID number didn't work, but an inmate allowed me to use their phone. So I was able to use another inmate's collect call to call the lawyer and finally get in contact with people.
So that is pretty traumatic too.
So they were fucking with this guy every way they could. They were fucking with him. They didn't.
This
give him
individual
a
is being. I think so. I think they used the max that they could put somebody in holding before actually handing down charges. So each step of these levels, they have laws and rules in place that they have to follow. So you can only hold an individual this amount of time before you have to give them charges or you have to release them. So they already knew what they were going to do, but I think I think that's part of trying to kind of scare this individual a little bit into either being part of an interrogation system or whatever else, not to come back to the forest after they are released. So let's play the next clip.
I heard the gunshots early on, just a couple minutes after I woke up, and I assumed there had been some people passing through the night before that I didn't really know very well, and it seemed like some people in the chats thought it might have been them, and I just assumed it was these people I didn't know because I didn't want to assume that it was somebody I knew, and I had no knowledge of anybody in the forest even having a weapon, and certainly that no one had discussed with me any intent of violence. The entire point of this protest is that we are just sitting in public space, and sitting in trees, and we are not on the offensive. We are on the defensive. We're defending a forest from being clear cut to build a offensive and frankly offensive military facility that is going to be used for violence against the people. And as far as I knew, no one had any arms in the forest at all. And all I knew at the time of my arrest, well, at the time of my kidnapping, was that I had heard gunshots in the distance. I didn't know that there was an officer shot. I didn't know that my friend had been killed. And the officers had not asked me about any of that situation. They did not tell me that I was involved with that. They were essentially silent throughout my search and kidnapping. Now, they're trying to get the felony charge. They're trying to say that we were in cahoots with Tort and we all planned this shooting of this police officer. That they were trying to get us on an aggravated assault. I did not know anything about that. None of us knew anything about that. And it seems like Tort didn't even have a gun. So this whole thing is completely shady as hell.
So a couple of things to point out here. It does sum it up.
This whole thing shady as hell.
This absolutely cannot be denoted as domestic terrorism. As far as I'm concerned, this is massive overreach in a way that's just basically designed to chill the First Amendment, to quell any anger that's out there towards Cop City. I also think is really important to note that these are state charges. These are not federal charges. I don't think the federal government would do this. Someone in the chat was pointing out none of the January 6 folks are being charged with domestic terrorism. You're correct. Nor should these individuals. It's a massive overreach. It's absolutely scary.
Well, they're trying to make an example.
They're trying to make an example.
They need someone to make an example out of, and this individual is just the person that they got hold of, in the most convenient fashion, however they did it. Maybe they were just, like the person who was most accessible to them. I don't know. I don't know how they got the unfortunate happenstance of being the one selected, but they needed somebody to make an example out of, and this individual.
Yes, there's 8 of them. Yeah, there was 8 of them charged from that morning, 19 total now, because now they're charging some of the individuals from Saturday night also with domestic terrorism, which is absolutely absurd for multiple reasons. The first point is that when the police showed up, they just started grabbing individuals. There was no, which is what they do. There's no rhyme or reason. They just want to shut down the protest, so they're grabbing individuals, throwing them on the ground, cuffing them, whatnot. There's no way
you're a terrorist. Now you're a terrorist. Now you're a terrorist. Do you see what I'm saying? Your seat. You're a terrorist. I mean, it's psychotic.
So basically, some of the individuals they picked up are marching down the street holding signs. They weren't involved in the property destruction, which I want to address in a second. They're just using their First Amendment rights, protected free speech, right? They're walking down the street holding a sign. Now they're being charged with domestic terrorism. It's absolutely insane, and it's dangerous. This is a dangerous use of this law because domestic terrorism is something that's real, that exists, that we should address. This is not it. And when you start to broaden out something that serious to include people that you disagree with politically, or constituencies that are not happy with their politicians not listening to them, I mean, because I want to say this. they did all the proper channels. They called their politicians and said, we don't like it. There was a public meeting. There was 17 hours of public comment on Cop City. 70% of that commentary was negative. So the vast majority of people that live in Atlanta do not want this facility. Politicians are not listening to that. So in response to that, they canvassed, they signed petitions, they knocked on doors, they showed up at more public meetings and tried to address and talk to their politicians about it, to no avail. To no avail. So, I mean, now, of course, they're going to become reactionary. These folks are not being heard.
You know what the police do to real domestic terrorists? They take them to Burger King.
Yeah.
Like what they did to Dylan Roof after he shot up a church. That's what they do to real domestic terrorists. Or sometimes we make a hero out of them, i.e. Kyle Rittenhouse.
I was just going to say
that's what our society does to real domestic terrorists in the United States.
It's insane. It's insane. It's insane.
It really is.
You know, it's really insane. So, so many to share. I think there's another clip, though. Colin, is there another clip we clipped?
There's a history of violence from police on nonviolent protesters in this forest. They've used tear gas, they've used military-grade CS gas, they've used pepper bullets, they've used rubber bullets, and they've sent dogs after people. So I knew that I was afraid for my life, honestly, and I was afraid for the lives of my friends for good reason, apparently. And so I came out of my tent. And I started walking around the forest trying to figure out exactly what was going on. And police, the police saw me in the forest and yelled, like very intimidatingly, said, you know, this is the police, we have a canine, don't get bit, don't get bit. And so I ran, and I was afraid for my life, and I ran, and I hid. And then when they found me, they just kept threatening me with the dog. They said, we're gonna send the dog in, and you put your hands up, and I was yelling at my feet to them, and I was yelling like, my feet are towards you, like my hands are up, but I don't know if you can see, like I'm not doing anything. And so they pulled me out, and they flipped me over and put me on the ground, you know, and the whole time never once said what I was being charged with, or why I was being detained. They handcuffed me and they brought me out of the forest. Once they brought me out, I believe it was APD that was arresting me, but there was GBI there was state troopers, there was DCAV, and once I got out, it was a whole range of tons of different officers, and they searched me again, not telling me why I was being detained, and they took my phone, and I just had like snacks and water in my pockets too. They took all that, and I still haven't got my phone back. I don't think I'll ever get my phone back because I was searched illegally before I was even in the jail, so there's no record of my possessions.
This is what they wish they could have done during Occupy.
Oh, 100%.
This is what the cops wanted. They couldn't do this in Occupy because it was in, you know, there was too many people around. It was in like cities and stuff. So they couldn't do this in Occupy. So this is what, if Occupy wasn't as much in the open and in the public, this is what they would have done to everybody in Occupy. So because they have literally the shield of the forest, this is what they want to do to any given group of people who's protesting something.
So I also want to point this out. So as I mentioned earlier, there were two camps going at this in the Milpas side. So this was in the public land. It was not where the Cop City protest site was. So when you went further into the forest is where you got to where the Cop City part was, and that would be criminal trespassing. So there were different degrees of this. So this individual wasn't even in the side where that was happening. They were in the Ryan Milpas Hollywood studio part of the camp. So that's what's happening there. I want to talk a little bit about the funding for the Police Foundation because they are the biggest financiers of Cop City. So this complex is slated to be like $90 million. So $60 million of that is coming from the Police Foundation, and their major donors are corporations. Somebody had mentioned Waffle House is one of them in the chat. Yes, Waffle House is one of them. You also have, Wells Fargo Bank, JP Morgan Chase, Coca-Cola, Amazon.
Yep, all the good guys.
All the usual suspects.
All the usual suspects.
And I think it's important to note that the property damage that occurred on Saturday night were those buildings targeted. So this was targeted property damage. They hit the Police Foundation building. They hit Wells Fargo. They hit a couple other banks. I can't remember what they are right now. But each of the buildings that were targeted were donators to the Police Foundation. So this was intentionally those items they wanted to make sure that they got only those. So it was targeted. That was clear. Anyway, I'd like to open it up to questions from folks. I think we probably have some,
Well,
right?
should we go to the super chats and stuff? Can I mention where I'll be first, and then we'll hit the super chats?
Okay,
folks?
sure.
So guys, first of all, this weekend, I'll be on the road. I'll be in Tucson, Arizona, Saturday night. Get your tickets. That's a stand-up show and the screening of my short film Loner. You can get tickets at romplacone.com. That's Saturday, January 28th. And guess what? Earlier in the day, there is the Status Coup live stream. There is a huge live stream going on this weekend. It's going on Saturday and Sunday. And there's just some of the folks there. Nina Turner will be there. Christian Small, Stephen Donziger, Marianne Williamson, Francis Fisher, Jordan, Kim, Tina. I'll be sending in a video. Unfortunately, I will be traveling this weekend, but you can check that out from noon to 3 p.m. I'm assuming that's Eastern time on Saturday and Sunday. You can go to statuscoup.com/donate to join. The goal is to raise $15,000, and we are at about 2. So if you are able to support, please do so. Again, what you're supporting when you support Status Coup, you are supporting on the ground journalism.
Yeah.
You're supporting the stuff that you just saw, because it's amazing. What's really great about collaborating at a place like this is that we get firsthand stuff. We get firsthand stuff from Tina, and we get firsthand stuff from Jordan and Lou and John. And then we take that stuff and we make it into something for the stream, and we make it to something for clips. But it's firsthand journalism. We're not just taking something
Right.
That's second source, and that's an
Or a
important
press release.
or a press release. And that's a really important way to do journalism. That's the best way to do it. That's the best way to do journalism and storytelling. And that's what we do here. But guess what? That takes a lot of resources. The reason not everybody does that is because it takes a lot of resources. Journalism costs money. That's just the reality of it. So we need your membership to keep this whole thing sustainable, and know that that is what you're supporting. You're supporting news and stories that the corporate media is neglecting. And
Yep.
that's a huge void, folks, because the stuff we talk about here, that's the stuff that the corporate media doesn't talk about, because their advertisers and owners wouldn't want them to. They don't want you to they don't want them to tell the truth about what's really going on with police, with what's really going on with the environment and the water in Flint and New Jersey and places like that. So that's why outlets like this have to exist. That's why this exists. So please tune in this weekend. And if you are able to,
Yeah, John Farina is going to be on the ground in Memphis, so that should be crazy.
So here's
let's
some chats.
let's do the chats.
We got Despos Fleisch, and Despos Fleisch says, "Smash the like button, smash the like button." Yeah, I hope you're enjoying that banger. I don't know. I'm still working on it, but I hope
No,
you're
it's
digging the
good.
like button theme. Thank you for that, Despos Fleisch. Tony D. 2 things I can't keep track of anymore: cop killings and mass shootings, because both are so sad. I hear you. Well, you can't. I mean, we've already had almost as many shootings as we've had days already in 2023. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I feel you, Tony. I hope all is well in Chicago. Oh, and I'm about to confirm my Chicago show, by the way, Tony. Alfredo, what's up, Alfredo? Law enforcement protects Capitol. Amen. I am with you, Alfredo. Schultzy, what's up? How are you, Schultzy? Good to see you. Wow, robot dogs. That's how Fahrenheit 451 it. No shit. With the protagonist running for his life. Fahrenheit 451. It's been years since I've read it, but good read. Humorous, what's up, Humorous? Oh, and Humorous mentioned, I think, earlier in the chat that they were at Woodstock.
Oh, wow. The original Woodstock, not the 94, I'm
believe
assuming.
I think
That's
they
way
meant
cool.
the original.
Wow.
Humorous, that's awesome. But here is your chat here, and thank you so much for your generosity. We have become a civilization of ignorance. We follow false dichotomies such as religion and money. Our schools no longer teach the young the truth, and our media no longer tells the truth. Those are some solid bars you got there, humorous. I'm with you. Solid bars. Carpe diem. See how quickly those indictments came down. LOL, and I'm glad, but the system will go to the wall to protect the grimiest white cop. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely.
I think that's part of
just
it.
The reality.
100%.
That's just the reality. Humorous, thank you very much for your very, very generous.
Wow,
super chat
very
here.
generous.
We appreciate that so much. You help keep this show alive. We sow hatred of others, fueled by what we think is true or what we want to be true, without regard to what is true. We've lost sight of distinguishing facts from opinions in fiction. We lob grenades at one another when we could be sharing thoughts and beers in pubs. I hear you. More
I'm
beers,
all about
less
the
grenades.
more beers, less grenades.
And
I'm
no
all for that.
grenades. All beers,
no
no
grenades. Did I say less? Yes. No.
We don't
grenades.
need
You're right.
any.
We don't need any grenades.
I don't
we
know.
need
Is
forests. We need beers.
I'm
we
trying
need
to
more
think
love.
if there would be like a situation where a grenade could be kind of useful. I can't think of
Probably
any.
the zombie apocalypse.
Well, I mean, I guess like demolition, like when you need to demolish a building, like they are.
Or if there were
that,
like
right?
no murderous serial killers out there, but I guess you don't need a grenade for that.
Colin has an idea.
Colin has an idea. He's chiming in.
Colin uses grenades to cook, I think. What's up, Colin?
We can't hear you.
We have
I
a
think he's
phantom,
muted.
Colin. I think
We
you're
have a-
muted, Colin. Colin, are you there?
There we go.
There we go.
What's up, buddy? You're on the air.
My
with Tina and
suggestion
Rob.
was a murderous rabbit was shown grenades are useful against.
Oh yeah, yeah. If there's any psycho mutant rabbits out there, you might need a grenade. So it's like, I mean, for the most part, they're not very useful.
That's so funny.
I'm still on board with beers, not grenades. That belongs on a T-shirt.
I agree.
Beers,
not grenades.
Well, I have an anti-flag shirt because they're a band from my hometown of Pittsburgh, and they're
Beers
good
and
band.
pinatas.
Beers and pinatas, but they're big hockey fans like me. So they actually, one of their T-shirts, it says "Drop pucks, not bombs." So I have a
Drop what?
Pucks, like a hockey puck.
Oh, pucks! I was like, what?
Drop pucks, not bombs. Yeah. So it's like so I have an anti-war hockey shirt, which I love. So thank you for that, humorous. Milena, what's up? Oh, thank you so much for this, Milena. I love the Tina and Ron show. Thank you so much for your efforts.
Thank you.
Also, oh yeah, this is very sad. Can you get it up, Colin, the chat here? And Milena also says, sorry to hear about the death in the Status Coup family. Yeah, Paul Paul
It's very sad.
It was so sad. Paul.
He's been part of the Status Coup group for a long time.
He was a Status Coup moderator. He would always watch my show, Get Your News On with Ron, too. He was just a big lefty indie media guy. Super cool, insightful dude. And on a personal level, I'm really bummed out because in June, Detroit is one of the cities I'm going to be coming to in June. In fact, tickets aren't available yet, but Detroit, June 23rd, I'm coming. And, I was looking forward to meeting Paul in person because Paul was all like, I can't wait till you come to Detroit. And Paul will not be able to be there, obviously. And it's just such a bummer. And I know that his family's supposed to reach out. And I look forward to them reaching out to Jordan and stuff. But yeah, it's so freaking sad. But apparently he was sick for a little while. And yeah, it's a bummer. It's not the same not seeing him in the chat anymore.
No,
really.
I know, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It's tragic.
So thank you for that, Milena. It is a very sad time. Humorous, what's up? Thank you so much again. We only had 2 jobs as humanity: take care of each other and take care of the garden that takes care of us. Wow, do we fail at that? No shit. That really is all we had to do.
Right.
That was it. Like, it was just like we were able to get food from the fucking ground, and water just came out of the sky, and boy, did we shit the bed. Humorous.
That's one way to describe it. I mean, literally, what's wrong with the human species? Did anybody else see this report about the Department of Justice and the child pornography?
No.
I didn't. All right, we'll talk about this next week. They just busted almost 5,000 employees for using DoD email servers, whatnot, to look at and share child pornography. I'm not kidding you.
And who is this? What organization?
It was in the Hill this morning.
No, but what's the organization that had these employees?
Department of Department of Justice. Sorry, my bad. Burp, burp. Department of Defense.
Oh God. I mean, surprising? No.
I feel like I have to
Disgusting?
pull
Yeah.
it up now just to read some of it so people have an idea about this. Hang on, let me pull it up. But it was this insane number, like an insane number. Hang on, let me pull this up. Scrolling. All right, hundreds of Pentagon officials caught running. Hang on, it's loading. Caught running child porn network on official DoD computers. Department of Defense. Brain, come on, brain. I'm still catching up on sleep here. Government officials viewing and sharing child porn on DoD networks has gotten so bad that bipartisan legislation has been introduced to stop it. The problem of government agents viewing
What was an acceptable level of bad, by the way?
I don't know.
What was their acceptable bad level? Just like, well, when it was just a little bit of child porn, we let it slide. But now there's just so many of them that are into it. We had to do something. Like, okay.
I mean, it's just the craziest thing ever. So House bill targets use of Pentagon networks for child pornography. This is an actual thing. Mark Meadows and Abigail Spanberger are the two sponsors of this bill. So we have one Democrat, one Republican. Introduced legislation on Tuesday meant to halt the use of Department of Defense computer networks by users for sharing or procuring pornographic images of children. The End National Defense Network Abuse was introduced in the wake of an investigation called Project Flicker, carried out by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The investigation, wait for it, the investigation identified over 5,000 individuals, including many affiliated with the Department of Justice, who were subscribed to child porn sites.
Jesus Christ. Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's so disgusting. That is just so disgusting.
It's shocking. It's absolutely
right.
shocking. So
we got some more chats here. Humorous. Good and evil on this planet is a choice. It is not a fact of the universe. If anyone anywhere
agree.
thinks that's what's going on in the world is good, we all choose evil. The wide path to destruction. Yeah, I feel you. It is
agree.
a choice. I do
agree.
think there is and I know humorous isn't not saying this, but I do think there is a line between good and evil. I know you and I have talked about this before.
Philosophically speaking, yeah.
Yeah, like there is a line between just straight up good and evil. That, I mean, there's also plenty of gray area, like life gives you, but there is a certain where it's just like, this is evil. At least that's what I believe.
Yeah, selling Nazi child porn would be evil. I think that's not up for
That
debate.
is definitely in the evil category. No. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think endless war in the evil category. White supremacy in the evil category. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty. There is just a lot of like, yeah, this is evil.
But I don't think human beings are innately born good or evil. I think humorous is right about that. Those are choices you make.
No,
some of it is environmental, right? I mean, if you're raised in certain environments, that's obviously going to trigger, and then psychopathy is another. That's probably the only hardwired thing that you could be possibly born to be in that category, but you're not necessarily going to be, right? You have to have things that environmentally cause that to be, flip that switch on kind of a thing.
Well, there's huge environmental factors at play for like 99%, like most of us. I mean,
no
like,
genetics is hardwired.
There's those
nothing in biology is hardwired. Nothing.
There's those extreme exceptions where you have like people who are just completely secluded from everything and they're, locked away and abused and stuff like that. And they usually end up dying.
Right.
But like, for the most part, like all of us, like we have an environment and yeah, it shapes us, but it also like you are going to have various types of exposure that might cause you to rebel, might cause you to go all in, might cause you to. That's why, there's a lot of reasons, but that's one of the many reasons I'm not a very big Sam Harris fan. But anyway, I don't want to get too far into the weeds.
No.
So, Alfredo, what's up? Cops can't solicit a trespass, park rangers maybe. Interesting.
That's some of the charges. I
ya.
thought it was, I hear what you're saying. I thought it was a strange charge. They're all getting charged with criminal trespass as well.
Michael says, if you use tear gas in warfare, you'd be committing a war crime. Henry,
you would in Europe or if you're doing actual war against somebody else, but police departments regularly use
well, they commit war crimes
weapons
against people all the
grade.
time.
Yeah, 100%.
They
Believe
commit
it or
war
not.
crimes against us all the time. Like
I've seen the LAPD use something called triple chaser, which is like a military grade tear gas.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Like the United States regularly commits war crimes against its own people. Like just and of course we commit them abroad all the time too. Like don't want to leave that out. But we literally have a military and a police force who does.
And effectively, this particular instance that I have in my mind, nobody was looting until the police started doing that, and they started shooting less lethals, tear gas, the whole nine, and then people just lost their minds.
I have never been at any protest in any situation where the violence was not started by the cops.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't understand why they think that they're going to break something up because people were actually starting to go home. It was like kind of disappearing, starting to wind down, whatnot, and then all of a sudden this started happening, and it just
anywhere I've ever been, the
escalated.
cops have started it. The cops
And
have
then
started
so then they
it
made their
anywhere I've
way
ever
down
been.
Melrose, smashing windows and looting. It just went nuts, went totally nuts.
I've never been in a situation where the cops didn't start it. As a person, like anything I've ever been at, any Black Lives Matter protest, anything, it was always peaceful until the cops showed up. They wanted to crack heads, so they started things, and that's always how it's gone. They would place cars strategically because they wanted people to mess with them. People wouldn't mess with them. They'd be like, "Don't mess with those cars." That's what they want us to do.
That's what they want us to do. Yeah.
So then all of a sudden there's this random car, and it's just randomly on fire. We don't know how it happened. I wonder who did that. And then they start cracking heads. I've never been in a situation where that hasn't been the case ever. So if that's ever happened,
I definitely have. I've definitely seen it go the opposite
might
way.
have.
But
No, I'm
majority
sure
of the time,
yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. That's definitely.
Well, I'm just talking from my experience.
No, 100%.
I've
I got
never been
you.
in a situation where that hasn't been the case. I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm just saying I've never been there. So I'm gonna go ahead and guess that percentage and statistically speaking, 90-some% of the time, it's the cops starting things. Because that's all I've ever experienced. I've never experienced the other way. Never. Not saying I never will, but I never have so far. Let's see. Project Redfoot. Yeah, okay, we read that one. Humorous, what's up? No one got those memos on the refrigerator. That's why I sent them to Status Coup. Aw, thanks, Humorous. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it so much.
We do appreciate it.
So, thank you, Humorous. Thank you for all your generosity. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Desbush Fleisch. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Desbush Fleisch, Tony, Humorous. Just want to make sure I get all the super chatters. And you can check out all of my tour dates at romplacone.com. I mentioned Tucson this Saturday. Also, I'll be in Los Angeles February 10th, April 14th, and May 12th. I'm doing a string of shows there, working on my new hour. June 16th, I'll be in Madison, Wisconsin. June 17th, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Get those tickets now and use the promo code Lucy at checkout. Early bird specials going on, so you can get cheaper tickets right now, Madison and Minneapolis. And should have Detroit and Chicago soon. I'll be announcing those as soon as they are 100% confirmed and tickets are available. And Indianapolis, trying to get to you. I'm working on you. Where you at, Indianapolis? I want to come to you. All right. So romplacone.com for all those tickets. And again, this weekend, do not forget statuscoup.com/donate. We are doing a long, what's it called? What's the official title?
Mega stream.
Two
mega streams, both Saturday and Sunday.
Mega
one
stream,
Saturday,
like
one Saturday.
Megazord,
Yeah.
Except it's
one
a stream.
Saturday, one Sunday. My brain is so fried from not sleeping.
It's okay. We know what you meant. We knew what you were doing there. And Crystal Ball is going to be there. Marianne Williamson, Francis Fisher, Nina Turner, Chris Small, Stephen Donziger, and myself. I'll be coming in via video. Tina.
Yes,
Kim,
I will be there. Hopefully with more sleep.
Everyone's going to be there. It's going to be an exciting thing, and you can catch that in the afternoons. And if you're in Tucson, Arizona, you can catch the mega stream in the afternoon, catch my show at night. Man, what a day. What a freaking day you can have.
What a day.
All right, so I think we got some right-wing insanity stuff.
We have, yeah, so let's switch gears for a second. We're not, I apologize, I didn't have enough time to put together an entire episode of right-wing insanity this week because I was obviously traveling on the road, just got back. Haven't had enough sleep yet, but I did want to do a segment. I think, Ron, you're going to join me for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what if I told you there was an extreme right-wing aspect to what happened Saturday night in Atlanta?
I wouldn't be terribly surprised.
Okay, fair then. Okay, so there is a...
Like, you mean as far as agitation goes, right?
No, not as far as agitation. Just so let me start this whole thing and explain it and put all the pieces together. So Andy Ngo, as Andy Ngo does, shared some screenshots, some video surveillance things on his Twitter over the weekend. The origination of these is a group called Antifa Watch. They have a Telegram. They have a website. Very hard right, extreme stuff. They often call people Antifa that aren't Antifa. You know, you get the picture. It's your typical stuff you see. And then another organization called the William McKinley Institute, which, in fact, let's put up their website so people can see what this is about. So William McKinley, president, who was shot and killed by an anarchist, right? So I think that is where they are getting their name from. But the guy that runs it is who we're going to talk about in a second in depth. One of the guys, I'm not sure who all of them are, but one of them is named Nathan D'Amigo. Nathan D'Amigo used to be the founder of a group called Identity Europa. I would qualify them as a neo-Nazi group. Some people might say they're white nationalists, but Identity Europa is basically.
Is there a difference?
I think some white nationalists don't define themselves as Nazis. Some white nationalists are okay with Jewish folks, believe it or not, as long as they're white. Others aren't. Most of them just want a white ethno-state. They don't want to hang Jews and black folks from ropes. So, I mean, it's a small distinction. I'm not going to get in the weeds on that because I don't think it's important, really, because I hear what you're saying. But go back to let's go back to our values site again, because I want to point something out here. So our values, the first thing you're reading there, our strong European values guide us in our mission to bring about a more perfect world. These values are at odds with the Jewish values that dominate our civilization today, infecting every institution with perversion, degeneracy, confusion, and chaos. If we are to survive the convergence of catastrophes plaguing our world, it will only be because of revival of these values. Okay, I'm not going to get any further than that. You get the point. I think that's enough for you to get the point of who they are.
Dog whistles detected.
Yeah, so you go to the front page, and it basically says that they're into investigating anti-white extremism. So everything they're framing is in terms of race as being anti-white, even if it's not anti-white. That's what they're calling it, right? So if you go to their front page, it's a lot about like exposing Antifa, exposing communists, exposing abolitionists, whatnot. All right, so they put out a thing about Saturday night where they had somebody there photographing individuals, putting their names up if they could identify them, saying this person's Antifa, whatnot, blah, blah, blah. So Andy No got a hold of this, put it on his Twitter, and tweeted it out. I'd like to put up on the screen some of the screenshots from their Telegram room really quickly, if we can, in no particular order. All right, so go back to that one for a second. This is a really important document. This is how we know that he's associated with this website. This is called journalism. I love this. All right, so this is so when you do an open records request, whether it's a FOIA or a CPRA, like whatever, you're doing a records request, you have to give your name and address on the records request. So this is a record request that Nathan made a couple of months back for another Antifa story that appears on the William McKinley website. You can trace it back, see that they're related. I want to point out that this address is a property that is owned by another white supremacist named Sam Dixon. Sam Dixon is a Ku Klux Klan attorney. He's been around a long time. We probably can put up after this. I'll get into Sam in a second, but just so we know that that's connected to in some way. I'm not sure how, to what extent. Or go to the next one. So these are some of the screenshots that they have. So this is like they're monitoring the Stop Cop City campaign is thinly veiled as an environmentalist issue when it is an anti-white, it's like anti-white anarchist and communist-led political movement. You know, it's wild to me that they say anti-white because half of these anarchists that were in the forest were definitely white. I mean, it's a mixed population.
Yeah, it's a ridiculously absurd thing.
Claim.
Like,
I agree.
Oh, anti-white. It's more just like, oh, anyone who's opposed to our fascist ideology.
Right. So they would oppose the mass immigration into America that is driving urban development to house the tens of thousands of people moving to the city annually. So they're, typical white nationalist stuff you would see about being anti-immigration. Let's go to the next one. So Black Bloc affinity groups spotted around the downtown Atlanta area. This was actually I took a screenshot of a video. They were playing a video there where some folks were running down the street. So why the William McKinley group is monitoring the situation this evening in Atlanta. Stay tuned for more details. So they're basically saying they have somebody down there in the street. I also wanted to show this. This is a press release from the Atlanta Anti-Fascist Organization there. Violent white nationalist leader Nathan D'Amigo works on anti-Antifa info project from his new base in Atlanta. He's originally, let me picture this out. He's originally from California, this guy is originally from California. He's also bankrupt now because he was one of the named defendants in the Charlottesville lawsuit. So he owes a lot of money because of that. And he filed for bankruptcy. Atlanta anti-fascists can now confirm that Nathan D'Amigo, a white supremacist with a history of violence and former leader and co-founder of the white nationalist group Identity Europa, has recently been attempting to dox forest defenders in Atlanta on behalf of the William McKinley Institute group. Materials from WMI, which also express virulent anti-Semitism, were recently circulated by far-right propagandist Andy Ngo, which is true on his Twitter. D'Amigo, who helped organize 2017's Bloody Unite the Right in Virginia, has relocated to Buckhead, Atlanta, according to information on an open records request last year. D'Amigo also gave a talk at an October white nationalist gathering in Metro Atlanta, further corroborating his presence in our city. The address provided by D'Amigo is owned by Sam Dixon, a longtime racist leader, former lawyer for Klansmen, and real estate speculator who makes his money by exploiting working-class black homeowners in South Atlanta. All right, so that's enough of that. We don't need to read any more of that. Just wanted to share that. And then let's go to my favorite screenshot, which I believe is next. Oh, no, this is Nathan D'Amigo's Gab. I wanted to point this out. He's saying here that his father was a police officer. So my father was in law enforcement for decades, and I never really spoke publicly about aspects of his life that had a profound impact on my understanding of the modern American policing and how broken the multiracial system is. That's all you need to know. He thinks it's a multiracial system and it's broken. All right, let's do the next one. Okay, this... I can't even read this one with a straight face because it's so insane. So this is the William McKinley Institute has an opinion on Andy Ngo, and it's not the opinion that Andy is preferring, I am sure. Much of what we do is unexciting and will never be seen or appreciated by the public. However, we wanted to share one thing among many that we are doing that may have potential benefits down the road. As of right now, there are only a handful of Antifa experts. Most of them are either adherents themselves, such as Stanislav Wiatkowski, I can't say that, or wait for it, are degenerate liberals such as Andy Ngo.
Wow. So Andy Ngo is too far left for these people.
And I think
and Andy Ngo, I mean, he's like very right wing, right?
He's very right wing. There's no universe in which he's a liberal. I think the most important word there actually is degenerate, though. This is a racist rhetoric we're reading right now.
Okay.
They are being racist against Andy. That is absolutely what's happening.
Because Andy Ngo is not white.
He's Asian, so he's a degenerate.
Right.
That's exactly what they're saying.
So that's
this
and
is
he's
how
also
racist,
automatically liberal to them. Is that why they're adding? Yeah. So they're saying, oh well, he's not white, so he's a liberal degenerate solely for being not white, even though he shares our right wing. Wow, man, that is like they're multiplying the hate.
They are multiplying the hate.
They're
so let's.
Like,
but yeah, point being is like when I read that I was like, oh Andy, oh. Like when are you gonna realize these guys hate you because you're Asian? That's who they are. They're these are extreme white supremacists, right? All right, so I wanted to just go into a little bit of explanation on who these players are for folks that don't know. So let's pull up the article on Nathan D'Amigo, founder of White National.
Why do you think, Andy, because you study this stuff more than I do, why do you think Andy Ngo does what he does? Like, do you think he actually believes it, or do you think it's just, like, does it make him a lot of money? Like, Like, why would somebody do what he does?
I think it's a combination of things. Generally speaking, a lot of the folks that are in that world that Andy's in, they're anti-communist. A lot of what drives their anger towards the left is an anger towards communism. So you'll often see at these Trump rallies large conglomerates of Asian folks that are Vietnamese background, perhaps sometimes I've noticed. And they're just angry about communism. So they're lashing out at communism, and they associate Antifa as being communist.
Okay, so because that's why, like, you see, like, there's a big Republican, like there's a lot of Republicans amidst, like, the Cuban population in the United States and stuff like
similar,
that.
Yeah,
it's similar sentiment.
Right.
All
And
right.
oftentimes people will have strange bedfellows. It depends on what's more important to them in their ideology wise. Like, they'll rank things, right? What's more important to your politics, your economic beliefs, your this? Like, everybody, we all have a way of in our brains, like, saying this principle is more important to me than others. So if your highest principle is I hate communism, like, that's it. I hate the CCP. I hate whatever it is. Then that's going to drive a lot of your decision making, and you might end up, having allies that, are, right-wing extremists.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and it's especially, I don't know, my personal take, and this is just like a more kind of thematic statement. If your strongest ideology is around something you hate, I feel like you're holding yourself back. I feel like that's
I agree.
not, like
It will
I
eat
am
you up on the inside.
100%.
Life is better
not,
if you're not hating. Life is so much
Oh,
better.
well,
and
totally.
healthier.
But it's also just a really, sad philosophy to have, because you're not really looking into any solutions. Like,
Right.
yes, I am totally against capitalism and what it is. And yes, you could call me an anti-capitalist. That would be 100% correct. But, if somebody's asking me, like, well, what's your strongest value? I wouldn't say what I hate. I wouldn't say, like, well, I'm an anti-capitalist. I would say, like, well, my strongest value is I believe in a communal society, one in which there is equity, one in which everybody has enough food in their belly and they have educational opportunities and they get to go to a doctor, and one that is anti-war. Like, that's what and you can call that eco-socialism. You can call it, anything like that, because that's accurate. But, I would just straight up say, this is the type of society I want to see. And then if you wanted to get further into the weeds, you'd be like, well, where does capitalism fall into this? I'd say, well, capitalism is completely incompatible with everything I just said. So because of all that, because I have those values, I am against capitalism, because capitalism is just incompatible with everything I just described.
Yeah. No, I know, but these folks, I mean, they hate it. It's almost as if I'm going back to that interview I did with the ex-Klansman, and what he was talking about is how hate becomes addicting. You get addicted to the hate, and it becomes as intoxicating as a drug is. So, I don't know. Interventions of some sort are definitely something we need to start thinking
Rage
about.
porn is a racket. Rage porn is a racket. You can make, you can make a lot of money doing rage porn.
You can. So that's part of it. All right, let's pull up this article.
You are tired.
I know, I'm sorry. So this is the founder of white nationalist group Identity Europa, Nathan Benjamin D'Amigo, an Oakdale, California resident who received an other than honorable discharge from the Marines, filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy January 2nd to liquidate any assets to pay creditors. D'Amigo and 24 other figures associated with the racist alt-right are defendants in federal civil suits stemming from the violence on August 12, 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia. The lawsuit is scheduled to trial from January 8th through August 2nd in Charlottesville. So he has now, he's declared bankruptcy because, as we know now, they lost this fight.
Wait a second. Dude has a dad who's a cop.
Yeah.
So he has a leg up in the law enforcement world. And he gets discharged dishonorably, which means he done fucked up pretty bad. And then he declares bankruptcy. And he still thinks that he is part of some superior race.
Yeah, he definitely does.
Someone spell that out for me. Dude.
What I say all the time, Ron, is that the master race isn't very bright. That's just the truth.
Apparently not. I mean, that's just kind of just like, yeah, I was born on third base and just, stumbled on my way to home over a pebble. But I'm part of the master race. Oh, you are? Really? Doesn't sound like it, dude. Doesn't sound like it. I mean, such a thing doesn't exist. But, still, if it did, sounds like you're not necessarily batting 1,000, dude.
So let me just read some of quotes that he sings in the back. He said in the past. Oh my God. I will get through this just to kind of frame his mind for a little bit better for folks. America was founded by white people. It was founded for white people. America was not founded to be multiracial, multicultural society. The founders were well aware of the importance that identity played in the makeup of a nation and how fundamental
true.
No, none of it's true. And how fundamental it was to the future progress and success of that people. So that is a quote from 2017. All
false. Just all historically completely false. Not based on that. Like there is no truth in that whatsoever. Whatsoever. The white settlers who came here with the intention of exploiting this place, they wouldn't have frickin' survived if the Native Americans didn't help them. Yeah, I mean, there's so many just ridiculous in everything that's that quote.
I just want to point out at one point in what year was this? Let me look. He was on the Young Turks 6 years ago. So when he was on the Young Turks, I guess 2016, he says, "We have people who've been here in America for hundreds of years, people of African heritage who've not fully assimilated." This is one of his
so the Young
excuses.
Turks were interviewing a neo-Nazi, and what was their agenda in doing so?
You would have to ask them.
No. I mean, because by the way, I see value in talking to Reformed. Like some of the stuff that you've done.
Oh, I agree. Listen, I
have
interviewed Nazis, and I will continue to do so. There is value in knowing how they think.
And
so I'm not suggesting, but I haven't watched this whole thing, so I'm not sure.
No. I understand what you're saying, and yeah, like I'm totally with you, and I think that it's important to understand, how somebody goes to that dogma, how somebody gets sucked into it, and then I think it's very valuable to talk to those who are Reformed because it's like, okay,
right.
This is something that is learned. It can be unlearned. So
it can be unlearned,
do people learn and
how do we do that? Yeah. And as you know, I've been interviewing folks like that. So I've interviewed 3 now. So I'm going to keep looking for folks that do that work because I think it's important. All right. One last one is most people think of democracy as being synonymous with free speech. It isn't necessarily. There's one for the free speech absolutists. So. All right, now let's turn our attention to the other player in this really quickly, Sam Dixon. So he is an ex-attorney for Klansmen. Let's pull up this Southern Poverty Law Center on Sam Dixon and his past. Sam Dixon's political activities from radical anti-communism to Holocaust denial stretch across the Western Hemisphere. Sam Dixon's right-wing political activities began in high school when he teamed up with local Goldwaterites. Since then, the Atlanta white supremacist and mini real estate mogul has been tied to numerous extremist groups and movements in the United States and around the world. From major Holocaust denial organizations to the Ku Klux Klan, he frequently is represented in courts. During the Cold War, Dixon was a member of the World Anti-Communist League, an international collection of right-wingers steeped in white supremacism and anti-Semitism. These tendencies became overt under the leadership of Dixon associate and British-born neo-Nazi Roger Pearson, who chaired the League in 1978 to 1979. Pearson recruited former Nazi and allied the organization with very anti-communist nation except for one, Israel. Not shocking there. In 1979, Dixon, as an American delegate to the League's conference in Asuncion, Paraguay, explained the group's anomalous support for the Palestine Liberation Organization to the Washington Post. Israel has made herself repugnant. Occasionally, one has to decide that the enemy of mine is not my friend. So what he's referencing here, I believe, is that he doesn't particularly like Palestinians or Muslims either. He just hates Jewish people more.
He hates Jewish people more.
Yeah, which is not uncommon with Nazis, to be frank. Anyway, you get the picture.
Yeah, that's some pretty heavy some heavy hate narratives there, to the point where even Andy No is too far left for them.
I know. When I saw that, I had to screenshot that one. I'm like, wow, okay.
That is
It's not
something.
surprising, though. I mean, it's not surprising. You see it a lot. I mean, a lot of the folks that were going after Kanye West, I'm not sure which way to go with that at this point. They were like, yeah, let's tokenize him because he hates Jewish people so much. But also, yeah, we hate that guy too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's why it's just like, that's why I like asked you. I'm just like, well, why do people do that kind of stuff? I mean, for Kanye, I think for him, I do think there is something wrong with him. I'm not excusing any of his behavior, but I do think he has like some kind of something going on that he's not attending to. But I also think he's just a narcissist who really likes attention. So he's just, kind of enjoying just the shock value of it all. But like when you're at that level and you see the rise of neo-Nazism going on in this country, which is happening. I mean, it's happening around the world, but I feel like it's happening here probably more so than almost anywhere. I mean, we have open Nazis running for office in the United States. We have, a bunch of Nazi sympathetic sentiments going on all the time. And, when you are a huge, megastar and you say something like, oh, yeah, Hitler. I mean, it's
Hitler's okay.
dangerous.
Hitler's a good guy. No, it's crazy. It's absolutely
It's
batshit.
insanely dangerous because you are seeing
agree.
like this new wave of just like Nazi sympathetic things going on in the United States. I mean, it's on the rise, and they have badges and guns. They are infiltrating public office.
Yeah.
They are, I mean, it's very, very real. I mean, it's just very, very real. Because keep in mind, like most of the Nazis, a lot of them came here. Like after World War II.
Operation Paperclip.
Operation Paperclip. A lot of them came here to the U.S., so it never really died out. It's just like
and all of that. I think not 100% absolutist on this, but a lot of that was motivated by being anti-communism, right? So
Right. Well, because I mean, think about the way we recite the history. Now we do still have a societal understanding that yes, the Nazis needed to be stopped. Fortunately, they
would not have been. The reality is, they would not have been stopped without Stalin.
Without the communists.
That's just
I mean,
fact.
but we forget that part. I mean, instead, what we do is, we being the contemporary United States, we use that as an excuse to justify all of our behavior on the world stage ever since. Like, well, hey, the Nazis needed to be stopped. Yes, they did. But that doesn't give you a license for the next, however many years to just do whatever you want around the world and pursue endless war.
That's not really why they're doing it. They're pursuing endless war in the name of corporate American business interests.
Right. I mean, So
but I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
So they use that as an excuse, and they also kind of forget the part that it's like, oh, by the way, the communists stopped the Nazis. Like that. I mean, yes, like the United States helped, but it wouldn't have happened, like you said, without the communists. And they lost a lot more than we did. They lost
100%.
a ton more than we did.
We spent a lot of time in North Africa versus being in the Europe, the front in Europe, right? We were down in North Africa helping Britain defend, I'm going to say it, empire in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. We didn't want the Nazis to go down there and steal, the things necessary for the war machine.
Man. So, yeah.
Anyway, that's what I've got for today.
Someone in the chat is saying that Kanye has been diagnosed with bipolar.
Okay.
All right. Again, when I say that, I'm not in any way excusing his behavior, because I'm really not excusing his behavior.
Yeah.
But I do think something.
It's part of the story.
Subjectively, I'm like, I think something is up with that dude. I don't think. Yeah. But.
All right.
I think we did it.
We did it.
I think that's another show. So, guys, tune in this weekend. If you're in Tucson, come see me in Tucson Saturday night. RonPlacone.com for tickets.
But make sure you only do that after watching John Farina's live stream from Memphis. Oh, it'll be over? Okay.
It'll be over by then. This is Saturday night, Pacific time, or Arizona time. They're in their own time zone. But it's 8 p.m. in Arizona. This Saturday, RonPlacone.com for that ticket. And all tickets, like I said, Los Angeles, Madison, Minneapolis. Tickets are available now. Detroit, tickets are coming. Chicago, tickets are coming. And working on finalizing Indianapolis. And yeah, this weekend, folks, do not miss it. It is the mega stream. Can we get that? There it is. Look
there
at that
it is,
mega
the mega
stream.
stream.
Jordan and Stephen Donziger and Kristen Smalls and
Nina Turner,
Marianne Williamson, Francis Fisher. Awesome lineup, awesome cause. Please do go to statuscoup.com/donate to get the party started. Keep in mind, when you support Status Coup, you are supporting on-the-ground journalism, which is what indie media is supposed to be about. That's what we're supposed to do, and that's what Status Coup does. So if you are able, please do consider contributing and joining as a member.
Indeed.
I think we got it.
We got it.
See y'all next week or over the weekend.